This time on Healthy Body, Healthy Mind. It's an illness that can give subtle hints of its existence long before many of us would even know it's there.
I have secondary progressive multiple sclerosis, and I've been diagnosed for about 10 years. Symptoms for probably 10 or 20 before that.
When I first noticed something was wrong with my health, I was 22, and I had numbness on the right side of my body.
It's so unpredictable because MS can hit any part of the nervous system.
I guess it was hard to hear, and I think I was in sort of a state of denial. They don't know what they're talking about.
Multiple sclerosis can have difficult consequences for patients living with the disease. But there is more hope today than ever before in how effectively MS can be treated.
Major funding for Healthy Body, Healthy Mind is provided by GE Healthcare, helping to predict, diagnose, inform, and treat so that individuals can live a full life. And by Teva Neuroscience, quality people, quality products, patient focus. Additional funding provided by CSL Biotherapies and by Bayer Healthcare and by Medtronic.
Welcome to Healthy Body, Healthy Mind. I'm Dr. Scott McFarland. Multiple sclerosis is often a difficult and debilitating disease. It can create life-changing consequences to both the physical and cognitive workings of the body. And although researchers are making tremendous headway in slowing the progression of MS once it's diagnosed, one of the continuing roadblocks in treating MS is how easily its symptoms can be overlooked by doctors and patients alike.
Probably started in high school, but really did not develop until till late 20s. And my symptoms appeared always individually, were somewhat mild, and always appeared to be something else.
46-year-old Susan Mamrall makes her home in Philadelphia. Like so many patients with MS, Susan was late in her diagnosis, partly because earlier medical advice didn't pinpoint her symptoms as being connected to MS, and partly because she didn't realize that those symptoms were anything much out of the ordinary.
I had left knee pain, patella knee pain, just right about here. And on a scale 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, it's probably a 6. Knowing now what MS is, it was like a flare-up or what they call an exacerbation.
With time, patients can have all sorts of problems symptom-wise. They can have weakness in their arms or their legs. They can have urinary complaints with urinary frequency. They can have urine infections. They can also have problems with balance and walking.
Dr. Clyde Markowitz is Associate Professor of Neurology and Director of the MS Center at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. With MS, immune cells that are meant to guard against germs take aim at the body's central nervous system instead.
For some reason, the body's immune cells seems to think that there's some sort of a problem in the brain. And these cells then migrate out of the blood into the brain and spinal cord and cause inflammation.
As a result, these attacks damage the nerves that transmit messages between the brain and spinal cord.
And the inflammation can cause symptoms and ultimately to some tissue damage in the brain, leading to the neurologic complaints patients have with MS.
Just as electric wires are insulated with rubber, nerves are insulated with fat. This fat is called myelin and coats the nerves to allow electricity to move back and forth very rapidly. Dr. Sylvia Lucas is a neurologist and a professor at the University of Washington.
When multiple sclerosis, when that attack goes on, it breaks down the insulation around the nerves, and then you lose the electrical signal.
The loss of these electrical signals eventually leads to symptoms of MS.
I had vision problems. I had double vision. I had blurred vision.
There's some complaint, some symptom that they're having. And that symptom typically for MS might look like numbness, tingling. It might end up being in the hand or the face or an arm or some part of the body.
Other MS symptoms can include fatigue, vision problems, dizziness, and bladder dysfunction. And today, partly because of better and faster detection methods, the number of people diagnosed with multiple sclerosis is on the rise.
Worldwide, it is anticipated that there's approximately 2.5 million people with MS. In America, there's over 400,000 people, so you can see that it's very prevalent in the United States.
And MS primarily affects people of Northern European descent. So, countries like the United States have a higher number of diagnoses than others. And, although the age range is quite broad, the first symptoms usually appear in early adulthood.
When you're 23, living your life, time just stopped.
When the neurologist told me, it was everything that I hoped that wasn't true came to fruition.
People with multiple sclerosis can experience the beginnings of the disease in many different ways. For those who have mild and often subtle symptoms over long periods of time, much of the damage to the nervous system can occur before an actual MS diagnosis is even made. And that's the typical story behind many MS discoveries. As we'll see, even though the diagnosis of MS can be a shocking experience, there is an ever-growing arsenal of treatment options that can help make the disease much more manageable.
Salt and pepper too, to get to that. And you don't like it crispy?
Susan Mamral is married with 3 children, ages 12, 14, and 15. Today, her youngest, Beata, and middle child, Timothy, help their mom make breakfast. Because of her multiple sclerosis, Susan navigates her way around the kitchen in an electric scooter. Susan's first warning signs of MS came long ago in the form of pain in her left knee, which would come and go over time.
And it was kind of awkward, and I would like stumble. I never fell, but I would just kind of like stumble and like be awkward and somewhat clumsy and just be kind of like, wow, what happened?
Eventually, the problem shifted to Susan's ankle.
I started developing some ankle weakness. And again, kind of like my knee, it happened over a period of maybe 6 years where occasionally, so maybe once every 2 or 3 years, my ankle would just kind of be walking along with my husband on a walk down on our main street where there's all kinds of shops, and my ankle would just roll out. It was like the type of thing that in hindsight, again, we noticed it, but it just, because it happened so infrequently, it didn't seem like a big deal. And when it would happen, I'd get some numbness around my ankle, but I assumed it was because I twisted it or sprained it or something like that.
But very commonly, people will be not very attuned that those symptoms might be symptoms of MS. And, you know, they may say that, oh, I slept on my arm funny, you know, it'll get better in another day or two, or, you know, this leg that was dragging, well, you know, maybe I had injured it when I was doing some gardening. They tend to come up with a lot of justifications for the complaints that they have. And unfortunately, you know, they don't seek medical attention, but in fact, it could have been something to be more concerned about.
Along with a colleague, Dr. Markowitz is reviewing the MRI brain scans of a multiple sclerosis patient. He explains that the light-colored spots are sclerotic lesions or scars.
So looking at this brain, you can see the beginning of a lesion here. So this is a bright spot consistent with an inflammatory lesion in the brain. Here's some smaller ones, and as we go down, you can see that the numbers of them increase dramatically. These are all lesions consistent with multiple sclerosis.
These lesions cause an interruption in electrical impulses. When the nerve fiber is destroyed, the ability of the nerves to conduct electrical impulses to and from the brain is disrupted. This produces the various symptoms of MS, the type and severity of which depends on the part of the central nervous system that's affected.
Now, do you think since going off the beta-seron, things have kind of...
Like so many patients with MS, Susan Mamral was late in her diagnosis, partly because earlier medical advice didn't pinpoint her symptoms as being connected to MS, and partly because she didn't realize that those symptoms were anything much out of the ordinary.
What happened with me is I think I had MS for probably the good 10 years and didn't get on the medicine. I think it might have slowed my progression down. When I did finally get diagnosed, I was already at secondary progressive stage, meaning I had had it for at least 10 years and my injuries were already permanent.
In all, there are 4 major types of multiple sclerosis. The most common is called relapsing remitting. Relapsing remitting MS is just what its name implies. Symptoms will come and go over time. In most cases, however, the periods of remission will become shorter and shorter while patients relapse into a more full-time experience with their symptoms. Secondary progressive MS is a natural progression of relapsing remitting MS. Symptoms become more progressive over time, with occasional minor relapse and remission periods along the way. Primary progressive MS is a slow but progressive building of symptoms that begins with minor complaints of mild muscle stiffness, numbness and tingling, and difficulty walking. Eventually, the symptoms grow worse over time. Progressive relapsing MS affects fewer people and starts out in a progressive, slow nature. Then, suddenly, an attack that is suggestive of a typical MS relapse can occur. Dimitrios Voudouris was born and raised in New York City and has been living with MS for over a decade now.
When I was told, couldn't stop crying. I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday.
At first, his multiple sclerosis was the more common type, relapsing remitting MS.
Hold the wrist up. Don't let me push down. Good.
It was just a matter of every 8 months I would have an attack. And then we would treat the attack, and the attack would go away.
But Dimitrios' condition would grow worse over time, and he was eventually given a new diagnosis of secondary progressive MS. By 1999, he needed a wheelchair to stay mobile. But while Dimitrios' MS became worse, there are also people like Michael Katz in Oakland, California. Originally diagnosed in 2001, Michael has had only 1 attack during that entire time. However, his left eye is permanently blurry due to the sclerosis on his optic nerve. Today, over 5 years since his initial diagnosis, you wouldn't know he has MS unless he told you.
I'm hoping that I'll be that type of person. I mean, they have different categories, and I think I've been put into the remitting relapsing category. Luckily, I've only had that 1 episode, so it hasn't been an ongoing process.
Experts say that a patient's severity level at the 5-year mark can be a good predictor of the type of MS symptoms they will continue to experience during their lifetime. It's because of this that Michael feels optimistic.
So I'm at the 5-year mark, and I haven't had any more episodes, so I'm hoping that that will bode well for the future.
One of the mysteries surrounding multiple sclerosis is how it appears to be more common in certain geographical patterns around the globe. In fact, the state of Washington is thought to have one of the highest rates of MS in the world. Allison Rainey grew up in the Seattle area of Washington.
I had lived in Seattle at the turning point of Pearl Jam and Nirvana, right at those ages, so it was a really neat musical scene.
But in the medical community, Seattle is known for something more than its music.
Seattle probably has the highest prevalence of MS in the world, but if you go around the latitude of the northern United States, so Seattle, Spokane, Minnesota, northern New York, Scandinavian countries, Britain, they have a much higher rate of MS. One of the popular theories that's being looked at now is the vitamin D theory. Maybe we don't have enough vitamin D and that puts us at risk.
The body makes vitamin D in response to sunlight, and the farther we are from the equator, the less sun exposure we will have. Some researchers believe a vitamin D deficiency could be one of the several factors that may cause immune cells to behave abnormally. Other theories suggest that a virus or toxin may trigger the disease.
We believe at this point that what causes MS is some genetic predisposition, that somebody has a set of genes that gives them some susceptibility. And then they must be exposed to some sort of environmental trigger. We don't know what that trigger is. It could be a virus, it could be a toxin. We don't really know.
Whatever the cause of MS, its consequences vary enormously from person to person. For Allison Rainey, the first sign was numbness on her right side when she was 22.
I could still walk. I could do everything like normal, but it was just numb to the touch.
It wasn't until she had vision problems a year later that her doctor suspected MS.
She kept beating around the bush, and finally I was just like, you got to tell me what's going on. And she said, well, we think you have MS and we need to do an MRI.
Many doctors often consider MS when a patient has two or more malfunctions of the nervous system, such as Allison's numbness and vision loss. But symptoms like these could be caused by other conditions as well, so it's important to rule those out first.
We do a whole battery of blood work, and the blood work is really designed to prevent us from making a misdiagnosis, because you can have symptoms that are very similar to MS with a variety of other conditions.
Dr. Markowitz also says that one of the most effective ways of confirming a diagnosis of MS is to ask patients several questions about the history of their symptoms and the history of any other family members with MS. Next is a neurologic workup, including MRI scans of the brain or spinal cord, depending on the patient's symptoms. Allison Rainey's MRI left no doubt about her diagnosis.
It was really ominous, just multiple sclerosis. And of course, as any young person, the first thing I want to know, well, does it hurt? And she said, typically speaking, no.
Allison was diagnosed with relapsing remitting MS. Along with the physical problems MS brings, it also can create emotional problems.
Well, hearing the news that you might have MS is very, very tough for people. And a lot of times I try and really give them some sense that this is not a death sentence, a life sentence, because most patients, when they come in and they are either being told by somebody that it could be MS, they come to me for a confirmation about MS.
And if that confirmation is made, there is much that can be done for people with MS. As with any disease, a careful treatment plan to address the problem is the next step. Over the years, MS research continues to help the medical community understand this disease more completely. Research also has made many strides in helping those who currently deal with the disease to do so more successfully than ever before. As we've seen, the beginnings of MS can be very subtle. Knowing the warning signs is the first step in tackling the onset of this disease when it's more manageable. Coming up, we'll see that once a diagnosis is made, there are many alternatives that can be put into place to begin the process of fighting MS. According to the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, the majority of people with MS do not become severely disabled. 2/3 remain able to walk, though many will need an aid, such as a cane or crutches. Scooters and wheelchairs can be used to conserve energy due to fatigue, weakness, and balance problems. To watch this program again, or see any other Healthy Body, Healthy Mind episode, please visit our website at hbhm.tv.
I want to make sure that they understand that there's a lot of options we have for treatment. This is not the MS from 20 years ago where, your doctor said, go home, get your things in order, there's nothing I can do for you. These days we have many therapies.
The majority of the treatments now will put time in between the different episodes or the symptoms that people have.
John Scott is president of the Greater Delaware Valley chapter of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society in Philadelphia.
So if someone is having symptoms monthly or every 2 months, it may put a longer period of time in between having the next exacerbation of symptoms. However, it is not found the underlying cause of the disease, so it is more symptom management than anything else.
Beta interferon, which is a natural protein created by the body's immune system, can be used to reduce the immune response directed against the myelin in the central nervous system. Glatiramer acetate is a medication that acts as an artificial protein and is very similar to myelin protein. It may help prevent the immune system's attacks from damaging nerve fibers. And treatments such as natalizumab have been shown to reduce the number of inflammatory cells. Other options, such as chemotherapy, are used as well, which slow down the immune system, which in turn slow down the autoimmune attacks.
And these therapies can actually affect the long-term consequences of having MS. They reduce the attacks, they prevent ongoing disability. So I really try and encourage patients to understand that there's a lot we can do for patients with a diagnosis of MS.
I'm a little bit more stable on my feet. Not having balance issues as much just helps you to keep walking forward.
Both research and real-life experiences have proven that the earlier MS is treated, the better.
The damage happens early. And what happened to me is all my damage happened. I wasn't on any medicine. So by the time I finally get diagnosed, I'm already past that stage where that medicine would have done a lot better for me.
So our best strategy at this point is try and find the diagnosis as early as possible and to initiate therapy before you get into problems.
Experts say patients should try to live their lives as normally as possible. For Allison, this meant modifying her car so she could drive without relying on her feet.
What's different is that there's a ball that I use to control the steering wheel, and then there's a lever that I'm pushing one way for gas and another way for brake. So I'm still going to the mall.
Michael Katz has been symptom-free for 5 years and isn't currently on any medicines or treatments other than his daily meditation. But he is now facing the prospect of whether he should be treated with a drug his doctor believes will prevent any future attacks.
So after the last MRI that showed that I had a new lesion that showed up on my brainstem, which is a little bit more of an area of concern, he sort of stepped up his urgency that I go on the disease-modifying drugs.
Demetrius Fedouras hasn't let his MS stop him. He's out and about most every day.
Twice a week, I have reserved for my therapy where I go to the pool. Get on the bus and go downtown, do my thing. I make it a point to be home by 5 because in the morning again is my strong time. But in the evening I do need to come home.
And while there are many life-changing events that can result from MS, there are also many hopeful signs coming from the medical research community.
10 years ago or 15 years ago, we didn't even have a therapy that affected the course of the disease, and now we have 6 therapies that actually affect the course of the disease, and we have well over 50 in development.
The study of multiple sclerosis continues to be very promising. Some of it focuses on efforts to cure MS altogether, while other work continues to create more effective treatments for living with the disease day to day.
So if we can figure out why it happens, what the genetics are, and what has to happen in order to start it, if we can stop that, that's going to be the cure.
In the meantime, today's therapies are helping many patients with MS live their lives to the fullest.
I think that's the most important thing that, I want people to know, yes, you have a disease, but it's not the end of the world.
So as long as I have a scooter to get around, electric scooter, get up and down the hills, I can get to church, I can get to the coffee shop, I can get to the bank, I can get around.
From my perspective is to let the good times roll. You may think it's the worst thing that ever happened, but believe me, life goes on. Stay positive.
Indeed. Along with all of the medical advancements available today, simply staying positive can add a great deal to a patient's overall outlook in dealing with MS. Well, that's it for this edition of Healthy Body, Healthy Mind. I'm Dr. Scott McFarland. See you next time. To watch this program again, or see any other Healthy Body, Healthy Mind episode, please visit our website at hbhm.tv. To answer any specific questions you may have about multiple sclerosis, be sure to contact your healthcare provider. To comment on today's program, please call 888-380-6500 or email hbhm at itvISUS.com or visit our website at hbhm.tv.
Major funding for Healthy Body, Healthy Mind is provided by GE Healthcare, helping to predict, diagnose, inform, and treat so that individuals can live a full life. And by Teva Neuroscience, quality people, quality products, patient focus. Additional funding provided by CSL Biotherapies and by Bayer Healthcare and by Medtronic.